Hey everyone, hope you're doing great. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll dive into what if Deku was judged by the Hero Commission. Smash that subscribe button, and be sure to peek at the description below. Let's begin. The air in the Shibuya district tasted like ozone and burnt concrete. It was a crisp, biting January afternoon, the kind of winter day where breath hung in the air like suspended ghosts. But currently, the only thing hanging in the air was dust. Izuku Midoriya coughed, waving a hand in front of his face as he skidded to a halt on the asphalt. The vibrations under his iron-soled boots hadn't stopped yet. "Keep moving, Deku!" The shout came from ahead. Katsuki Bakugo was already airborne, utilizing his explosions to navigate the debris field with terrifying grace. To the left, Shoto Todoroki was creating an ice slide to stabilize a tilting office complex. They were in the middle of their work-study with the Endeavor Agency, and what was supposed to be a routine patrol had turned into a catastrophe. A villain calling himself Faultline, a man with the ability to liquefy structural supports within a 2-block radius, had decided to make a statement against Heroes Society. "I'm on it!" Izuku yelled back. He channeled One for All, full cowling. Green lightning crackled around his body, the familiar hum of power settling over his skin at 8%. He launched himself forward, bouncing off a streetlight to gain altitude. Below him, civilians were screaming. The panic was a physical weight, pressing against his chest. Assess the situation, Izuku thought, his mind racing through variables. Todoroki has the east side stability. Bakugo is pursuing the villain. Endeavor is evacuating the hot zone. I need to clear the intersection before the overpass gives way. He saw them then. A family trapped inside a sedan that had been crushed by falling masonry. The car was pinned, and above them, a massive chunk of the overhead highway was groaning, the rebar snapping like dry twigs. It was going to fall. In 3 seconds. No! Izuku pushed his quirk. 10%. 15. The pain was immediate, a dull ache in his bones, but he ignored it. He wasn't fast enough. The distance was too great. Even with his speed, gravity was winning. The slab of concrete, weighing easily 20 tons, began its descent toward the trapped car. "I can't reach them. I can't reach them!" Panic, cold and sharp, pierced through his focus. He reached out with his hand, a desperate, futile gesture, screaming in his mind, "Stop! Grab it!" And then, the itch started. It wasn't the familiar warmth of One for All. It was something else, something ancient, angry, and volatile. It started in his knuckles, shot up his arm, and exploded out of his pores. Crack! The sound wasn't like thunder. It sounded like a whip breaking the sound barrier. Black energy erupted from Izuku's right arm. It didn't look like light. It looked like voids in reality, tendrils of dark, purple-tinged smoke that solidified into rope-like constructs. They lashed out with a mind of their own, wild and thrashing. "What the?" Izuku gasped. The black tendrils surged forward, covering the 50 meters in a blink. They wrapped around the falling slab of concrete, the energy biting into the stone. Izuku felt a sudden, wrenching yank on his shoulder that nearly dislocated it. "Rag!" he screamed, planting his feet on the side of a building. The glass windows beneath his boots shattered from the pressure. He hauled back, not with strength, but with pure will. The black whips held. The 20-ton slab froze in midair, inches above the crushed car. Time seemed to stop. Down below, the civilians looked up, eyes wide with terror. They weren't looking at the debris. They were looking at him. Izuku hung from the side of the building, teeth gritted, green lightning mixing with the chaotic, writhing black energy pouring from his arm. He looked less like a hero and more like a creature possessed. "Endeavor!" Izuku choked out, the strain causing capillaries in his eyes to burst. Now! A blur of flames shot past. Endeavor incinerated the debris with a precision flash fire, turning the rock to dust before it could crush the car. As soon as the weight was gone, the black energy snapped back. Izuku lost his grip on the building and fell, crashing onto the pavement in a heap. The black tendrils dissipated into smoke, leaving his arm bruised and trembling. Silence descended on the intersection. Izuku panted, clutching his right arm. He looked up. Bakugo had landed on a lamppost nearby. He wasn't yelling. He was staring, his red eyes wide, pupils contracted to pinpricks. Todoroki was frozen on his ice slide. Even Endeavor, the man who never paused, was looking at Izuku with a heavy, calculating furrow in his brow. But it was the crowd that scared Izuku the most. Dozens of smartphones were raised. Live streams. Recording. Did you see that? A woman whispered, her voice carrying in the silence. That wasn't power, that was something else. He has 2 quirks. A man asked. Like a Nomu? Izuku swallowed the bile rising in his throat. He pulled his arm close to his chest, trying to hide the lingering wisps of black smoke. Oh no, he thought, the dread colder than Todoroki's ice. Everyone saw. 3 hours later, UA High School, Alliance Heights dorms. The silence in the Class 1A common room was suffocating. Usually, after a work-study, the room was filled with the sounds of Sato baking, Kaminari complaining about sore muscles, or Ida lecturing someone about proper equipment maintenance. Tonight, the TV was on, and everyone was gathered around it. Footage emerging from the Shibuya incident has sparked a whirlwind of controversy, the news anchor said. Her face was grave. Student hero Deku, previously known for a strength-enhancing quirk similar to All Might, appeared to manifest a secondary, entirely distinct ability. The screen replayed the moment in high definition. The black whip slashing out. The dark, jagged aura. It looked violent. It looked villainous. Experts are already drawing parallels to the bioengineered creatures known as Nomu, the anchor continued. The Hero Public Safety Commission has yet to issue a statement, but questions are being raised regarding the transparency of UA High School's screening process. Is Deku a natural outlier, or is he the result of quirk experimentation? Mina Ashido clicked the TV off. The screen went black, but the image remained burned in their minds. They're talking about him like he's a monster, Uraraka said softly, her hands clenched in her lap. He saved that family. It doesn't matter what he did, round face, Bakugo growled from the kitchen counter. He wasn't looking at anyone. He was staring at a glass of water, his grip so tight it threatened to shatter. It matters what it looked like, Midoriya Ida said, turning to where Izuku sat on the edge of the sofa. You truly had no idea this would happen? Izuku shook his head. He was still wearing his gym uniform. He hadn't even showered. He felt numb. No. I didn't know. Technically, it wasn't a lie. He knew about the vestiges. He knew One for All was growing. But this uncontrollable, terrifying manifestation? He hadn't known. It's weird, right? Ciro chimed in, trying to break the tension but failing. I mean, it looked kinda like my tape, but angry. It looked like Black Whip, Tokoemi murmured from the corner, dark shadow hovering anxiously over his shoulder. A kindred spirit of darkness. But volatile. The front door of the dorm slid open. The sound made everyone jump. Shota Aizawa stood there. His capture weapon was loose around his neck, his eyes bloodshot and tired. But there was a stiffness to his posture that wasn't usually there. Midoriya Aizawa said. His voice was flat. Izuku stood up immediately. Yes, sensei, come with me. Bring your provisional license. Sensei? Uraraka stood up too. Is he in trouble? He didn't mean to. Stay put, Uraraka, Aizawa said, his eyes flashing red for a fraction of a second, silencing the room. The rest of you, stay off social media. Do not engage with journalists. Go to your rooms. Bakugo slammed his glass down. Is this about the commission? Aizawa paused. He looked at Bakugo, and for a moment, the teacher's mask slipped. He looked worried. Just go to your rooms, Aizawa repeated. He looked at Izuku. Let's go, problem child. Izuku walked to the door, feeling the weight of 19 pairs of eyes on his back. As he passed Bakugo, he heard a faint whisper, so low only he could hear it. Don't tell them anything, you damn nerd. Izuku nodded imperceptibly and stepped out into the cold night air. Principal Nisa's office. The walk to the main building was silent. Aizawa didn't scold him. He didn't ask about the quirk. He walked with a defensive gait, keeping himself between Izuku and the open campus, as if expecting an ambush. When they entered the principal's office, the atmosphere was thick enough to cut with a knife. Nisa was seated at his desk, his paws clasped together. To his right sat All Might, Toshinori Yagi. The former symbol of peace looked worse than usual. He was skeletal, pale, and sweating. Young Midoriya, Toshinori said, standing up as Izuku entered. Are you hurt? The backlash from the new power. I'm fine, All Might, Izuku said quickly. But the news. We have bigger problems than the news, Niza squeaked, though there was no whimsy in his tone. The principal's black eyes were hard beads. Sit down, Midoriya, Aizawa said, leaning against the wall. Izuku sat. What's happening? Niza pushed a piece of paper across the desk. It wasn't UA stationery. It was thick, cream-colored paper with a golden seal embossed at the top. The Hero Public Safety Commission. 30 minutes ago, I received an emergency subpoena, Nizu explained. They are invoking the Quirk Singularity Public Safety Act of 21XX. It is a wartime law, rarely used. Izuku read the document. The legalese swam before his eyes, but certain words jumped out: unregistered metability. Biological hazard. Immediate custody. Custody? Izuku whispered. The blood drained from his face. Are they arresting me? Not arrest, Aizawa spat. Detainment for evaluation. They're claiming that your sudden manifestation of a second quirk presents a threat to national stability. They think you're a ticking time bomb, or worse, a sleeper agent for the League. I told them. Toshinori slammed his fist onto the arm of his chair. I told the president that you are my successor. That it is one for all, and that, Niza said softly, is precisely the problem. Izuku looked up. What do you mean? The Commission has always tolerated All Might because he was a stabilizing force, Niza said. They allowed him his secrets because he brought results. But you, Midoriya? You are an unknown variable, and now that they know one for all can change? That it holds multiple quirks, Niza leaned forward. They no longer see a hero. They see a weapon of mass destruction that they do not control. So they want to take him, Aizawa summarized grimly. They want to put him in a lab and dissect the quirk until they feel safe again. I won't let them, Toshinori said, smoke beginning to rise from his shoulders as he tried to buff up, only to cough up blood and deflate. I will go public. I will tell the world. If you go public, Niza cut in sharply, the Commission will label Midoriya a vigilante. They will say you passed a dangerous power to a child illegally. They will shut down UA, revoke every student's license in Class 1A, and throw Midoriya in Tartarus before the morning news cycle begins. The room fell into a terrified silence. So, Izuku said, his voice trembling. I have to go. We are stalling them, Aizawa said. We're trying to find a legal loop. A harsh, electronic buzz cut through the air. It was the intercom. Principal Nizu, the voice of the campus security system, spoke. There are vehicles at the main gate. They have federal clearance override. They are entering the campus. Niza's ears flattened against his head. They didn't wait for the morning. Aizawa moved to the window. For black SUVs. No police markings. That's HPSC ops. Toshinori grabbed Izuku's shoulder. His grip was bony and shaking. Run, my boy. Go to Gran Torino. Go anywhere. No, Izuku said. The word hung in the air. Izuku stood up. His legs were shaking, but his eyes were clear. If I run, they'll come after the school. They'll come after Mom. They'll come after you, All Might. He looked at his hands, the hands that had broken themselves a dozen times to save others. I didn't do anything wrong, Izuku said. I saved those people today. I am a hero student of UA. If I run, I prove them right. I prove I'm a villain, Midoriya. Aizawa pushed off the wall. These aren't villains you can punch. This is bureaucracy. It's a monster that eats people quietly. I know, Izuku said. He looked at the door. But I have to trust that you'll get me out. There was a heavy knock on the office door. It wasn't a question, it was a demand. Niza sighed, a sound of deep, profound frustration. He pressed a button on his desk. Come in. The door opened. 3 people entered. They wore identical black suits, crisp and expensive. The one in the lead was a woman with sharp features, glasses, and hair pulled back into a severe bun. She didn't look at Aizawa. She didn't look at All Might. She looked only at Izuku. Izuku Midoriya, she said. Her voice was perfectly calm, devoid of any emotion. I am Agent Mera, acting on behalf of the Safety Commission. She held up a badge. You are to come with us for immediate quirk counseling and threat assessment. Failure to comply will result in the immediate revocation of your provisional license and charges of quirk negligence being filed against your mother, Inko Midoriya. A low growl came from Aizawa's throat. His hair began to float. You threaten his family? Standard procedure for minors who pose a catastrophic risk, Agent Mera said, unbothered. She gestured to the hall. Mr. Midoriya. The car is waiting. Izuku stepped forward. Young Midoriya. Toshinori stepped between them, his large frame shielding his student. You cannot take him. He is under my protection. Agent Mera looked up at the skeletal man. There was no reverence in her eyes. Only pity. Your protection expired the day you used the last of your embers, Yagi-san, she said coldly. Please step aside. Or do you wish to be charged with obstruction of justice? All Might, Izuku said softly. He placed a hand on his mentor's arm. It's okay. It is not okay. Toshinori cried, tears welling in his sunken eyes. It will be, Izuku lied. He forced a smile, the smile All Might had taught him. The smile that said I am here. I'll be back soon. Tell the class, tell them to focus on their training. Izuku stepped around All Might. He walked up to Agent Mera. I'm coming, he said. 2 agents flanked him immediately. One produced a pair of cuffs. Are those necessary? Aizawa snapped. He's a student, not a criminal. They are quirk-suppressant cuffs, Mera said. For his safety. And ours. Izuku held out his wrists. The metal clicked shut. It was cold. Immediately, the buzzing warmth of one for all vanished from his gut, leaving him feeling hollow and small. He was led out of the office, the front gates. The walk to the cars felt like a funeral procession. The agents surrounded him, walking in lockstep. As they reached the main entrance of UA, Izuku saw lights in the dorm windows. He saw silhouettes pressed against the glass. His friends were watching. He wanted to wave. He wanted to scream. But he kept his head down, staring at the polished shoes of the agents. They reached the lead SUV. The back door was held open. The interior was dark, separated from the driver by thick, soundproof glass. Get in, the agent said. Izuku climbed in. The leather was stiff. The doors slammed shut with a finality that echoed in his chest. As the convoy began to move, rolling smoothly away from the only home he had known for the past year, Izuku looked out the tinted window. He saw All Might standing at the gate, looking smaller than Izuku had ever seen him, the rain beginning to fall around him. Izuku leaned his head back against the seat and closed his eyes. The darkness of the car felt suffocating. It felt like the Black Whip. So a voice came from the seat opposite him. Izuku's eyes snapped open. He hadn't realized there was someone else in the car. Sitting in the shadows, legs crossed, was a woman. She had blonde hair styled elegantly, and eyes that seemed to see through his skin, down to the secrets written in his DNA. The president of the Hero Public Safety Commission. You're the boy causing all this trouble, she said. Her tone wasn't angry. It was curious. Like a scientist looking at a new strain of virus. I didn't mean to cause trouble, Izuku stammered, the quirk cuffs digging into his wrists. Intent is irrelevant, Midoriya-kun, the president said softly. She leaned forward into the light of a passing street lamp. Impact is what matters. And you have impacted the world quite severely tonight. She pulled out a tablet and tapped the screen. A holographic projection of Izuku's medical file appeared. Quirkless until age 15, she read. Then, suddenly, a power rivaling the #1 hero. And now, tendrils of dark energy. She locked eyes with him. Tell me, Izuku, she whispered. Did you really think the government wouldn't notice? Did you think you could hoard that kind of power without us taking an interest? I'm going to be a hero, Izuku said, his voice shaking but firm. Like All Might, the president smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. All Might was a symbol we allowed to exist because he played by our rules, she said. But you? You are chaotic. You are messy. And you are holding on to something that doesn't belong to you. The car turned onto the highway, speeding away from the city lights, toward the dark, unseen facilities where the maps ended. We aren't going to the police station, are we? Izuku asked quietly. No, the president replied, turning off the tablet. We're going to the nest. It's where we train the special cases. The ones who need a firmer hand. She looked out the window at the passing city. You have a lot of potential, Izuku Midoriya. I'm going to make sure it's used for the greater good. Izuku looked down at his cuffed hands. The greater good. He had heard that phrase before. It was usually what people said right before they did something terrible. The convoy disappeared into the night, leaving UA and the world of Sunlight Heroes far behind. The transition from the world of heroes to the world of ghosts was seamless. It happened not with a bang, but with the quiet hum of an electric motor and the hydraulic hiss of a heavy door sealing shut. Izuku Midoriya sat in the back of the armored transport. He had lost track of time. His phone had been confiscated the moment he stepped into the vehicle, slipped into a Faraday bag by Agent Mera. Without a clock, without the stars, and with the windows blackened to absolute opacity, he was left with only the rhythm of the road. He counted the turns. Left. Sharp right. Deceleration. A long stretch of highway, likely the Bayshore route. Then a descent. The pressure in his ears popped. They were going underground. Deep underground. The air inside the cabin was recycled and stale, smelling faintly of lemon cleaner and old fear. Across from him, the HPSC president had not spoken since her ominous declaration about the greater good. She merely swiped through files on her tablet, the blue light illuminating her face, casting shadows that made her skull look hollow. Izuku's wrists itched. The quirk suppressant cuffs were heavy, humming with a low-frequency vibration that made his bones ache. Every time he tried to reach for the well of power that was one for all, he hit a wall. It was like reaching for a limb that had been amputated. The power was there, he knew it, but the connection was severed. The car slowed to a halt. We have arrived, the president said, snapping her tablet cover shut. Where? Izuku asked. His voice sounded raspy. A place that doesn't exist on any map you've ever seen, she replied pleasantly. We call it the aviary. It's where we keep the things that are too precious to lose, but too dangerous to let fly. The door opened. Izuku expected a garage. What he saw was a white void. The room was a massive, sterile hangar. The floors were polished white epoxy, the walls were white acoustic panels, and the ceiling was a grid of blinding LED strips. There were no shadows here. There was nowhere to hide. Armed guards stood in formation, 6 of them. They weren't wearing police uniforms. They wore tactical gear in matte gray, faces obscured by full-paneled helmets. They held rifles that looked more like energy weapons than standard firearms. Move, Agent Mera commanded, nudging Izuku out of the car. Izuku stepped onto the white floor. The sound of his red boots squeaking was painfully loud in the silence. Processing, the president ordered, walking past the guards without acknowledging them. I want a full biological workup. Level 5 diagnostics. I want to know every protein strand in his DNA by morning. Yes, Madam President, a man in a lab coat said, stepping forward from the group. He wore a surgical mask, hiding his expression. Wait, Izuku said, panic rising in his chest. I have rights. I'm a student of UA High. I have the right to legal counsel. I have the right to call my mother. The president stopped. She didn't turn around. She just paused, her heels clicking on the floor. Under the Quirk Singularity Public Safety Act, she said, her voice echoing in the vast space, individuals designated as biological catastrophes are temporarily stripped of civil liberties until their threat level is assessed. You aren't a citizen right now, Midoriya-kun. You are a hazardous material. She continued walking, disappearing through a sliding glass door. 2 guards grabbed Izuku's arms. Don't struggle, one of them said. The voice was distorted by a modulator. We are authorized to use tasers. I'm not resisting, Izuku said, forcing his body to go limp, though every instinct screamed at him to fight. Analyze. Observe. Survive. They marched him down a long, white corridor. There were no windows. The air was cold, refrigerated. It kept the bacteria count down. It kept the pulse rates low. They reached a room labeled decontamination. Clothes, the guard ordered. What? Strip. Everything. Watch, shoes, costume. Put them in the bin. Izuku hesitated, clutching the fabric of his gamma suit. This suit was designed by Hatsum. It was filled with memories of his training, the modifications he'd made to match his shoot style. It was his armor. Do it, or we do it for you. Trembling, Izuku obeyed. He removed the iron soles. He unzipped the dark green protective fabric. He stripped down to his boxers. He felt incredibly small. The scars on his arms, the jagged, ugly remnants of his fight with Muscular, and his reckless early days, stood out starkly against his pale skin under the harsh lights. The guard threw a bundle of gray fabric at him. Put these on. It was a standard-issue prisoner jumpsuit, but high quality. Soft cotton. No zippers. No strings. Nothing that could be used as a weapon or a tool. As Izuku pulled the gray shirt over his head, another technician approached with a metal device. Neck, the technician said. Is the cuff not enough? Izuku asked, eyeing the device. It looked like a thick, silver choker. The cuffs are for transport. This is for residency. Click. The collar snapped around his neck. It was tight, resting right over his pulse point. A small red light blinked on the front. If you attempt to activate your quirk, the technician explained in a bored monotone, sensors in the collar will detect the sudden rise in bioelectric current. It will deliver a localized neuroshock that will incapacitate you instantly. If you try to remove it, it will deliver a lethal charge. Do you understand? Izuku swallowed. The collar moved with his throat. I understand. Good. Asset 9 Alpha processed. Take him to the tank. The tank. The cell wasn't a dungeon. In many ways, that made it worse. It was a 15 by 15 foot room. The walls were padded with a firm, white material. There was a bed, bolted to the floor, with white sheets. A toilet and sink unit, made of seamless molded plastic, sat in the corner. One wall was entirely glass, reinforced, bulletproof, cork-resistant glass. On the other side of the glass was darkness. Izuku couldn't see out, but he knew they could see in. The door hissed shut behind him. The lock engaged with a heavy thud clank hiss. Silence. Absolute, ringing silence. Izuku stood in the center of the room. He looked at his hands. They were shaking. Okay, he whispered to himself. Okay. Assess. He began to pace. 4 steps turn. 4 steps turn. Situation, kidnapped by the government. Legal status, suspended. Location, unknown, likely beneath a dense urban area or a remote mountain facility based on the drive time. Allies, none present. Communication, 0. He tapped the collar at his throat. It was cold metal. Why? The question burned in his brain. Why go this far? The HPSC was strict. He knew that. They had overridden local police in the Stain incident. They managed the provisional licensing. But this? This was Black Ops level rendition. This was how you treated a villain like All for One. Because of Black Whip, he realized. To them, I'm not a hero student. I'm a glitch. He sat on the edge of the bed. He thought of his mother. Inko would be frantic. She would be calling the school. Would Aizawa tell her the truth? Or would he be forced to lie? I'm sorry, Mom, Izuku whispered, putting his head in his hands. He thought of All Might. The man who had given him everything. If the commission dug deep enough, if they analyzed his DNA against the registry. A sharp hiss of air made him look up. A panel in the wall slid open. A tray of food extended on a robotic arm. It was a balanced meal, grilled fish, rice, vegetables. Nutritional paste. A bottle of water. Eat, a voice came over the intercom. It was synthesized, genderless. I want to speak to someone, Izuku said, walking to the glass. He pressed his hand against it. I want to speak to the president. Eat. Maintain caloric intake for testing. I'm not hungry. I want answers. Noncompliance noted. Eat. Izuku stared at his reflection in the glass. He looked different. The gray scrubs washed him out. The collar looked like a shackle. His eyes, usually bright and determined, looked haunted. He turned away from the glass. He forced himself to sit. He forced himself to eat the rice. He needed energy. If an opportunity to escape presented itself, he couldn't be weak from hunger. 1 bite. 2 bites. I am not a victim, he told himself, channeling the voice of Bakugo. I am the 9th holder. I am here. But in the silence of the tank, the words felt very small. The lab. Time became fluid. Izuku slept fitfully, waking up every time the ventilation system cycled. There were no windows to show the sun. The lights never turned off, they only dimmed to a twilight gray. Hours later, or maybe a day, the door opened. Up, a guard said. Medical. Izuku stood. He didn't fight. He let them lead him down the hall again, this time to a room filled with machines that looked like they belonged in a science fiction movie. In the center of the room was a chair with restraints. Standing next to it was a doctor. This wasn't the technician from before. This was an older man, bald, with wire-rimmed glasses and a hunchback. He was looking at a holographic screen displaying a complex double-helix structure. Sit, the doctor said, not looking up. Izuku sat. The guard strapped his wrists and ankles. I am Dr. Sanemiya, the man said. He turned, his eyes magnified by his thick lenses. I am the lead analyst for the Commission's Biological Research Division. I have been studying quirks for 40 years. He leaned in close to Izuku's face. He smelled of peppermint and antiseptic. And I have never seen a genetic map like yours, Midoriya-kun. Izuku's heart hammered against his ribs. What do you mean? Dr. Sanemiya rolled his stool over. He tapped the screen. This is a standard quirk factor, he said, pointing to a glowing blue section on a DNA strand. A single mutation. Clear. Defined. He swiped the screen. A new image appeared. It was a chaotic mess of red, gold, and black lines, overlapping and knotting together. This is you. The doctor looked at Izuku with a mixture of awe and horror. Your medical records state you were born quirkless. The extra joint in your pinky toe confirms it. You should be empty. A blank slate. He pointed a bony finger at Izuku's chest. But you are not empty. You are overflowing. It is as if someone poured a gallon of water into a shot glass. The energy density in your cells is critical. It's forcing your body to evolve at an accelerated rate just to contain it. Sanemiya picked up a scanner, a long needle-like probe, and now, this secondary manifestation. The Black Whip energy. It is not a mutation of your strength quirk. It is a completely separate genetic code. Distinct. Ancient. The doctor pressed the probe against Izuku's arm. A sharp sting. How is that possible, Midoriya? How does a quirkless boy suddenly possess a stockpile of power and a secondary quirk that belongs to a pro-hero who died decades ago? Izuku froze. He knows. He traced the quirk factor of Black Whip. I don't know, Izuku lied. Quirks mutate. It's the singularity. Don't insult my intelligence, Sanemiya snapped. He typed furiously on his console. This isn't mutation. This is acquisition. You have multiple quirk factors residing in one body. Only one other individual in history has displayed such a trait. The name hung in the air, unspoken but screaming. All for one. Are you related to Shigaraki? Sanemiya asked sharply. Did the League give you this power? No! Izuku shouted, struggling against the straps. I'm a hero. I fight them. Or perhaps you are a sleeper agent, Sanemiya mused. A vessel prepared for something else. The door to the lab slid open. That's enough, Doctor. The president walked in. She had changed clothes. She now wore a white suit, pristine and sharp. She looked rested. Madam President, Sanemiya stood up and bowed. The data is conclusive. The subject possesses a multi-quirk physiology. However, unlike the Nomu, his brain function is intact. He is stable. Stable, the president repeated, testing the word. She walked over to Izuku. She looked down at him strapped in the chair. Release the restraints, she ordered. Madam, he is dangerous. Release them. If he tries anything, the collar will fry his motor cortex. The guards undid the straps. Izuku rubbed his wrists. He looked up at the president. Walk with me, Izuku, she said. It wasn't a request. The observation deck. They walked to an elevator. The president used a biometric key card and a retinal scan to activate it. They went up. When the doors opened, Izuku blinked. They were in a high-rise office, encased in glass. Outside, the sun was setting over a dense forest. They were in the mountains, far from the city. But what caught Izuku's eye wasn't the view, it was the screens. One wall of the office was a massive bank of monitors. They showed live feeds from every major city in Japan. Hero patrols. Traffic cameras. News feeds. Do you know what my job is? The president asked, walking to a sideboard and pouring 2 cups of tea. You run the Hero Commission, Izuku said, watching her carefully. I manage the narrative, she corrected. She handed him a cup. Tea. It's jasmine. Drink it. Izuku took the cup. The warmth seeped into his cold fingers. Hero society is a fragile thing, Izuku, she said, turning to the screens. It is a soap bubble floating over a bed of nails. People think safety comes from All Might punching a villain. But it doesn't. Safety comes from faith. She pointed to a screen showing a busy crossing in Tokyo. People walk to work because they believe the heroes will protect them. If that belief shatters, society collapses. We saw it when All Might retired. Crime spiked. Fear spiked. She turned to face him. Her eyes were hard. We cannot afford another collapse. We cannot afford chaos. I'm not chaos, Izuku argued. I want to save people. That's all I've ever wanted. You are an uncontrolled variable, she countered. You manifested a power that destroyed a city block's infrastructure in seconds. You have a quirk that mimics the greatest villain in history, and you are a child. She took a sip of her tea. We looked into your records, Izuku. Deeply. We found the gaps. The revised registry entry. The connection to All Might. She set the cup down. We know he gave it to you. Izuku's breath hitched. He said nothing. One for all, she said. The name sounded strange coming from her lips, bureaucratic and sterile. A torch passed from generation to generation. A lovely fairy tale. It's not a fairy tale, Izuku said defensively. No. It's a stockpiling of power that grows stronger with every generation. And according to Dr. Sanemiya's projections, you are the tipping point. She stepped closer, invading his personal space. The quark singularity doomsday theory states that eventually, quarks will become too powerful for human bodies to control. You are that theory come to life, Izuku. You are the point of no return. If you lose control, really lose control, you won't just break a building. You could level a city. I won't, Izuku said. I'm training. I'm learning to control it. At a high school? The president laughed, a dry, humorless sound. UA is a school for children. They teach you rescue drills and math. They are not equipped to train a nuclear warhead. She walked back to her desk and picked up a file. This is why you are here. We are not going to arrest you, Izuku. We are going to employ you. Izuku blinked. What? You can't go back to UA. That life is over. The risk is too high. If the public finds out that the next symbol of peace is a volatile, multi-quark anomaly, they will panic. The villains will target you before you are ready. She dropped the file on the desk. You will stay here. At the aviary. You will be trained by our specialists, experts who know how to weaponize quarks, not just use them for rescue. You will learn to control every facet of that power. And when you are ready, you will debut as our hero. A commission hero, Izuku realized. Like Hawks, she agreed. But stronger. More controlled. Efficient. And if I refuse? The room went cold. The president sat on the edge of her desk. She crossed her arms. If you refuse, then I have to treat you as a threat to national security. I will have to classify One for All as an illegal bioweapon. I will have to arrest All Might for the unauthorized transfer of a regulated power. I will have to shut down UA for negligence. She tilted her head. And your mother, well, living with the knowledge that her son is a villain in the eyes of the state. That would be very hard on a woman with her heart condition. Izuku felt sick. The tea in his stomach turned to lead. You're blackmailing me, he whispered. I am ensuring the safety of Japan, she corrected. I am offering you the chance to be the greatest hero the world has ever seen. A hero who doesn't make mistakes. A hero who answers to the law, not to his own ego. She extended a hand. Join us, Izuku. Let us help you carry this burden. You don't have to be afraid of hurting people anymore. We will teach you how to use the whip. We will make you perfect. Izuku looked at her hand. It was perfectly manicured, He thought of the black whip tearing up the street. He thought of the fear in the bystanders' eyes. He thought of All Might, coughing blood, burdened by the secret. Maybe she was right. Maybe he was too dangerous to be left alone. But then he remembered Aizawa's words. This is bureaucracy. It's a monster that eats people quietly. Izuku looked up. His green eyes were dim, but burning. I want to see my teacher, he said. The president's hand didn't waver. Excuse me? I won't sign anything. I won't agree to anything. Until I speak to Principal Nizu or Mr. Aizawa. The president slowly lowered her hand. Her expression hardened. The mask of politeness slipped, revealing the steel beneath. You are clinging to a life that is already gone, Midoriya. Maybe, Izuku said, standing up straighter despite the collar. But All Might taught me to smile. And you aren't smiling. The president stared at him for a long moment. Then she sighed, as if dealing with a petulant toddler. Very well. You want to do this the hard way. She pressed a button on her desk. Guards. Take Asset 9 Alpha back to the tank. Isolate him. No books. No interaction. Lower the temperature in the cell by 10 degrees. The elevator doors opened. The armored men were waiting. Think about it in the cold, Izuku, she called out as he was dragged away. Heroism isn't about ideals. It's about logistics. Eventually you'll understand. The cold. Back in the cell, the silence was heavier than before. And true to her word, it was freezing. Izuku huddled on the bed, pulling the thin white sheet around his shoulders. He could see his breath. The cold seeped into the metal of the collar, making it feel like a ring of ice against his throat. He curled his knees to his chest. He was alone. No one for all. No friends. No All Might. Just the humming of the lights and the terrifying realization that the people who were supposed to be the good guys, the people who signed the licenses and ran the society, were just as scary as the villains. He closed his eyes, trying to summon the vestiges. Trying to find the users within the quirk. Banjo? Nana? Are you there? Nothing. The collar dampened everything. It was just him. I'm not an asset, he whispered into the dark, his teeth chattering. I'm a hero. But as the shivering took hold, and the hours stretched into the night, Izuku Midoriya began to wonder if there was a difference anymore. UA High School, Alliance Heights dorms, 4 a.m. The rain had started an hour after Izuku was taken, a relentless, freezing downpour that battered the windows of the Heights Alliance dorms. Inside, the common room was a tomb of silence, broken only by the rhythmic tapping of a foot against the floor. Katsuki Bakugo sat on the kitchen counter, his knees drawn up, staring at the dark screen of his phone. He hadn't blinked in minutes. The red in his eyes seemed to burn brighter in the gloom, fueled by a mixture of exhaustion and a rage so potent it made his hands tremble. Stop pacing, Four Eyes, Bakugo growled, his voice rasping. You're vibrating the damn floor. Tenya Ida stopped in the center of the room. He was still wearing his uniform from the day before, though his tie was undone, a rare sign of his unraveling composure. I cannot simply sit, Bakugo, Ida said, chopping the air with a stiff hand. Midoriya has been taken into federal custody without a stated charge. The faculty has been silent for 6 hours. This is irregular. It is against protocol. It's not irregular, Shoto Todoroki said from the sofa. He was staring at his left hand. It's a disappearance. My father does it to sidekicks who become liabilities. The commission does it to heroes who ask too many questions. Don't say that. Ochako Uraraka snapped. She was sitting at the table, surrounded by notebooks. She had been trying to write down everything she remembered from the incident, timelines, witness positions, the exact nature of the black whips, hoping it could help. Deku isn't a liability. He's Deku. He's a suspect, Bakugo muttered, hopping off the counter. He walked to the window, staring out at the rain-slicked campus. Bakugo knew. He was the only one in the room who truly understood the gravity of the situation. He knew about One for All. He knew about the legacy. And he knew exactly why the suits in the black cars were terrified. They saw the multiple quirks, Bakugo thought, his teeth grinding together. They saw the extra power. They think he's turning into a Nomu. Or worse, they figured out he's All Might's stash. We need to do something, Eijiro Kirishima said, clenching his fists. We can't just wait for morning homeroom. We should go to the teachers' dorms. Demand answers. And get expelled? Momo Yayarosa said softly. She looked pale. If the HPSC is involved, this is above Aizawa-sensei's head. If we act recklessly, we give them ammunition to say UA can't control its students. That would hurt Midoriya's case. So we do nothing? Uraraka asked, her voice cracking. We just let them treat him like a criminal? Before anyone could answer, the front door slid open. Usually, when Aizawa entered, he was quiet. Tonight, he let the door slam. He looked like he had aged 10 years in 10 hours. He was soaked to the bone, his black hair plastered to his face, water dripping onto the entryway mat. Sensei! Ida rushed forward. Where is he? What are the charges? Aizawa held up a hand. Sit down. All of you. The class gathered. Even Mineta looked serious. Midoriya is currently being held at an undisclosed facility for quirk evaluation, Aizawa said, his voice devoid of its usual dry apathy. It was just tired. The HPSC has invoked the Public Safety Act. They have classified his case as a national security matter. National security? Tsuyu placed a finger to her chin, her eyes wide. That sounds heavy, Karo. It means they've locked him in a box and thrown away the key until they decide he's safe, Bakugo spat. He stepped up to Aizawa. Where is he? Is he with the old man? Is All Might with him? Aizawa looked at Bakugo. He saw the frantic knowledge in the boy's eyes. All Might has been denied access, Aizawa said quietly. The room gasped. All Might, the former number one, the symbol of the country, denied access to his own student? They blocked All Might? Ciro whispered. Can they even do that? They can do whatever they want, Aizawa said bitterly. They are the law. And right now, the law is scared. Aizawa looked around the room, meeting the eyes of every student. Listen to me closely. Tomorrow, the media will be swarming the gates. There will be rumors. They will say Midoriya is dangerous. They will say he is unstable. You are to say nothing. You are to go to class, train, and keep your heads down. You want us to abandon him? Uraraka stood up, knocking her chair over. I want you to survive. Aizawa's shout silenced the room. His eyes flashed red, hair rising for a split second before falling back down. The commission is looking for a reason to dismantle this class. They are looking for a reason to take control of UA. If you act out, if you rebel, you play right into their hands. And if UA falls, Midoriya has no one left to fight for him. Aizawa took a breath, calming himself. Nizu is working on legal channels. I am working on other channels. Trust us. Aizawa turned and walked back into the rain, leaving the students in a heavier silence than before. Bakugo stared at the door. He felt a burning in his chest that had nothing to do with nitroglycerin. Trust you? Bakugo thought. The last time we trusted the pros to handle things, All Might lost his power. I'm not waiting for Deku to lose his freedom. The aviary, medical sector 4, 9 a.m. Izuku Midoriya lay on a cold metal table. He was shivering, though he wasn't sure if it was from the temperature of the room or the lingering shock of the neurocollar around his neck. Above him, a massive circular machine hummed and rotated. It was a quirk factor analysis scanner, a device far more advanced than anything at a regular hospital. It didn't just X-ray bones, it mapped the bioelectric pathways of the metagene. Hold your breath, the synthesized voice of the machine commanded. Izuku held his breath. A laser grid swept over his body, red lines tracing his muscles, his nerves, the scars on his arms. Breathe. Izuku gasped, the air cold in his lungs. He tried to turn his head, but he was strapped down. We need another sample of the spinal fluid, a voice said. It was Dr. Sanemiya. We've already taken 3, a nurse whispered. His blood pressure is dropping. The readings are inconclusive. The density is too high. It's jamming the scanner. We need a direct tap into the central nervous system. Do it. Izuku felt a cold wipe on his lower back. He gritted his teeth. Don't scream. Don't give them the satisfaction. A sharp pain, like a hot needle, pierced his spine. His body jerked involuntarily against the restraints. The collar at his neck beeped a warning, yellow light. If it turned red, he would be shocked. Sample secured, Sanemiya muttered. Run it against the database. Priority Alpha. The table tilted, bringing Izuku upright. The straps released with a hiss. Get dressed, Sanemiya ordered, not looking at him. He was staring at a bank of monitors where colorful, chaotic graphs were spiking. Then wait in the holding cell. Izuku pulled on his gray jumpsuit. His back ached. He felt violated, dissected like a frog in science class. What are you looking for? Izuku asked, his voice hoarse. I told you. It's my quirk. It's called superpower. Sanemiya turned slowly. The reflection of the data screens danced in his thick glasses. Superpower, the doctor repeated mockingly. That is what is written on your registry. A generic name for a generic emitter type. But this, he pointed to the screen. It showed a 3D model of Izuku's DNA. But unlike a normal helix, this one was glowing with 7 distinct, pulsating nodes of light. This is not a quirk, Midoriya-kun. This is a colony. Sanemiya walked closer, his eyes manic with scientific discovery. We found the strength enhancer. That's the core. But wrapped around it, we found the tendrils you used yesterday. And buried deeper? There are 5 more dormant factors. 5 more quirks waiting to wake up. Izuku's blood ran cold. They can see them. They can see the other users. And the strangest thing, Sanemiya whispered, is that none of these genetic markers share a lineage. They don't come from your parents. They don't come from a shared ancestor. It's as if you reached into a crowd and stole pieces of strangers' souls. The door to the lab slid open. Doctor, Agent Mera said, stepping in. The president is ready. She wants the comparison report. Sanemiya grabbed a tablet. It's ready. It's undeniable. Izuku was grabbed by the guards. As they dragged him out, he looked back at the screen. The 7 lights in his DNA seemed to pulse, like heartbeats. They know, Izuku thought. They're going to find out everything. HPSC headquarters, the president's office, 11:30 a.m. The president of the Hero Public Safety Commission sat behind a desk made of reclaimed mahogany. The room was vast, intimidating, and impeccably organized. Behind her, the floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the forest surrounding the secret facility, but the blinds were drawn, casting the room in shadow. Izuku was shoved into a chair opposite the desk. He wasn't cuffed this time, but the collar remained. 2 guards stood by the door. Hawks, the number 2 hero, leaned against the far wall, his wings folded, his expression unreadable behind his visor. Thank you for joining us, Izuku, the president said. She didn't look up from the file she was reading. I didn't have a choice, Izuku replied. True. She closed the file. It was an old folder, yellowed with age. Stamped on the front in red ink was, Top Secret, YGI Toshinori. Next to it lay a fresh, crisp blue folder, Midoriya Izuku. The president placed a hand on each folder. Do you know what the job of the commission is, Izuku? She asked. To oversee hero activities. To keep the public safe. To maintain order, she corrected. We are the gardeners of society. We prune the weeds. We water the flowers. And sometimes, we have to deal with invasive species. She slid the 2 folders together until they touched. For 40 years, All Might was our greatest flower. He was beautiful. He was strong. But he was also difficult. He had secrets. He refused to register the true nature of his quirk. He called it a trade secret. She tapped the yellow folder. We allowed it. Because he was effective. But we always wondered, where did all that energy come from? A man who could change the weather with a punch? It defied physics. She opened the blue folder, Izuku's folder. And now we have you. A boy who was quirkless. A boy who suddenly, the summer before high school, gains a power identical to All Might's. And then, yesterday, you manifest a second power. She looked up, her eyes sharp as daggers. Dr. Sanemiya ran a cross-reference. The genetic markers in your Black Whip quirk? They match the DNA of a pro-hero named Lariat, Daigoro Banjo. He died over 30 years ago. Izuku gripped the armrests of his chair. Banjo, they found Banjo. So I asked myself, the president continued, her voice dangerously soft. How does a boy in 20XX have the quirk of a dead man from the Golden Age? And the strength of All Might? And the potential for 5 more unknown abilities? She stood up and walked around the desk. She leaned against the front of it, crossing her arms, looking down at him. It's a transfer, isn't it? Izuku said nothing. He stared at his knees. It's not a genetic mutation. It's a stockpiling quirk that can be passed from person to person. All Might didn't just retire, Izuku. He gave his quirk away. To you. The silence in the room was deafening. Hawks shifted his weight, his feathers rustling slightly. You can't prove that, Izuku whispered. I don't need to prove it in a court of law, the president said. I just need to prove it to myself. And the biology doesn't lie. You are a vessel. She began to pace. Do you realize what this means? If this power can be transferred, it is the most dangerous object on the planet. If a villain took it, if All for One took it, he can't take it. Izuku blurted out. He clamped his hand over his mouth instantly. The president stopped. She smiled, a cold, victorious curving of her lips. So there are rules, she said. It can't be taken. Only given? Or perhaps it has a will of its own? She sighed and shook her head. You are a child, walking around with a nuclear warhead in your pocket. And All Might, the symbol of peace, he acted with gross negligence. He handed a weapon of mass destruction to a 15-year-old boy without government oversight, without training, without clearance. He gave me a chance. Izuku shouted, standing up. The guards tensed, raising their rifles. He gave me a chance to be a hero when no one else would. It's not a weapon. It's a heart. It's the will to save people. It is a strategic asset, the president snapped. Her voice lost its calm facade. And it is currently in the possession of an unauthorized civilian. She walked back to her chair and sat down. Here is the reality, Midoriya. The cat is out of the bag. We know what you are. And we cannot let you go back to UA. Why not? Izuku demanded. I can control it. I'm learning, because if the public finds out that All Might's power is transferable, every villain, every criminal organization, every foreign government will come for you. You will be hunted. And UA cannot protect you. Aizawa cannot protect you. She picked up a document and a pen. There is only one place safe enough for the vessel of One for All. She slid the paper across the desk. You will become a ward of the commission. You will withdraw from UA High immediately. You will disappear from public record. We will announce that you have been sent overseas for specialized training due to the volatility of your quirk. Izuku looked at the paper. It was a contract. Permanent remand to custody. And if I sign? Izuku asked, trembling. If you sign, we protect you. We train you. Hawks here, she gestured to the winged hero, will be your personal handler. We will teach you how to use all the quirks inside you. And when you are ready, when we say you are ready, you will become the new symbol. A symbol that lasts. A symbol that we control. And if I don't? The president leaned forward. Then I invoke the Singularity Act. I label you a biological threat. I throw you in the lowest level of Tartarus, next to All for One, where you will never see the sun again. I arrest All Might for treason. I destroy UA's reputation. She uncapped the pen and held it out. Choice is yours, Izuku. Be a hero for the state. Or be a martyr for nothing. Izuku stared at the pen. The black ink looked like the void of the whip. He looked at Hawks. The number 2 hero wasn't looking at the president. He was looking at Izuku. His eyes were sad. He gave a microscopic shake of his head. Don't do it, Hawks was saying. But what choice did he have? If he fought, he lost everything. If he signed, he lost himself. But he saved All Might. Izuku reached out. His hand shook violently. He took the pen. I need. Izuku's voice cracked. I need to know that All Might won't be hurt. You have my word, the president said smoothly. Yagi Tashinori will be allowed to live out his retirement in peace. As long as you cooperate. Izuku lowered the pen to the paper. The tip touched the line. I'm sorry, everyone, he thought. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry, Ochako. I'm sorry, Kaken. He signed his name, Izuku Midoriya. The president snatched the paper away the moment he finished. She smiled, looking genuinely pleased for the first time. Smart boy. You've just saved the World. She pressed a button on her intercom. Take him to the secure wing. He's no longer a prisoner. He's a recruit. The guards moved forward, but their grip was looser now. They weren't dragging a criminal. They were escorting an asset. As Izuku walked to the door, he stopped next to Hawks. Did you sign one of these too? Izuku whispered. Hawks looked down at him. He adjusted his visor. We all pay a price to fly, kid, Hawks murmured. Welcome to the cage. The doors closed, sealing Izuku inside the machine. Outside the aviary, HPSC perimeter, 12 p.m. High in a tree overlooking the hidden entrance of the facility, a tunnel disguised as a utility road, a small drone buzzed. It was the size of a beetle. Inside a van parked 3 miles away, Mei Hatsum adjusted her goggles. I got a heat signature, she chirped. It's faint, but it matches the tracking chip I put in the 10 million shoes. He's still wearing his shoes? Shoto Todoroki asked from the back of the van. No, the signal is stationary. Deep underground. They probably stripped him, Mei said, tapping her keyboard furiously. But I have the location. The aviary? It's real. Bakugo sat in the corner of the van, sharpening a combat knife he had smuggled out. Good, Bakugo growled. We know where the nerds are keeping him. Now what? Kirishima asked. Bakugo stood up. He looked at the map on Mei's screen. Now, Bakugo said, a feral grin spreading across his face, we go to war. The aviary, Sector 1, residential, Day 2 of containment. Izuku woke up. For a split second, his mind played a trick on him. He expected the familiar, cluttered ceiling of his dorm room at UA. He expected to see his All Might posters, his dumbbells in the corner, and the morning light filtering through cheap curtains. He expected to hear Ida shouting in the hallway about punctuality. Instead, he opened his eyes to a ceiling of flawless, white plaster. He sat up, the silk sheets sliding off his chest. The room was massive, easily 3 times the size of his room at Heights Alliance. It was furnished in a style that could be described as aggressive minimalism. Modern art on the walls. A king-size bed. A massive flat-screen TV. A bookshelf stocked with classics, tactical manuals, and biographies of approved heroes. It looked like a 5-star hotel suite. It felt like a mausoleum. Izuku touched his neck. The heavy metal collar was gone. In its place was a slim, black band, barely thicker than a piece of jewelry. It looked like a fitness tracker. He swung his legs out of bed. His feet sank into plush, gray carpet. He walked to the window. It was floor-to-ceiling glass. Outside, he saw a beautiful Japanese garden, cherry blossoms, a koi pond, a stone path. But when he pressed his hand against the glass, he felt a hum. It wasn't glass. It was a high-resolution projection screen. Izuku tapped it. The image flickered for a millisecond, revealing the gray concrete wall behind it. Good morning, Midoriya-kun. Izuku spun around. Leaning against the doorframe, munching on a skewer of yakitori, was the wing hero, Hawks. He looked exactly as he did on TV, relaxed, cool, his golden visor reflecting the artificial light of the room. His massive red wings were folded tight against his back, but the tips of the feathers twitched, tracking Izuku's movements. Hawks, Izuku breathed. Yo, Hawks said, swallowing a bite of chicken. He waved the skewer. Nice room, right? Way better than the dorms. I heard UA has shared bathrooms. Barbaric. Where am I? Izuku asked. I mean really. Still in the aviary, Hawks said, pushing off the doorframe and strolling into the room. He walked with a casual confidence that made the space feel smaller. This is the penthouse level, reserved for the top assets. Me, occasionally a few Black Ops guys, and now, you. Izuku looked at the fake window. Why are you here? I'm your handler, kid, Hawks said, dropping onto the leather sofa and kicking his boots up onto the coffee table. The president thinks you need a mentor. Someone who understands the nuances of working for the commission. Since All Might is retired and Aizawa is too emotional, you got the number 2 hero. I don't need a handler, Izuku said, his hands curling into fists. I need to go back to school, Hawks sighed. He finished the yakitori and tossed the stick into a trash can with perfect aim. Sit down, Izuku. I'd rather stand. Sit down. The command wasn't shouted, but the air pressure in the room dropped. A single red feather detached from Hawk's wing and hovered inches from Izuku's throat. It was sharp as a razor. Izuku sat on the edge of the bed. "Look," Hawk said, his voice returning to its breezy tone. "I get it. You're angry. You feel betrayed. You think we're the villains. You kidnapped me," Izuku said. "You blackmailed me." "We recruited you," Hawks corrected. "And yeah, the recruitment pitch was a little aggressive. But think about the alternative. If you stayed at UA, with that ticking time bomb of a quirk, you'd be a target. The League would come for you. The media would tear you apart. The government would eventually have to step in anyway, and it wouldn't be this nice." Hawks gestured around the room. "This is the golden cage, kid. It's comfortable. You get the best food, the best training, the best equipment. You want a PS5? It's in the cabinet. You want to analyze quirk theory? We have the biggest database in the world." "But I can't leave," Izuku said softly. "You can leave," Hawks said, locking eyes with him. "When you're ready. When you're perfect." Hawks stood up and walked over to Izuku. He leaned down, his face serious. "The commission keeps the peace. That's the job. People sleep safely in their beds because we do the dirty work. We make the hard calls. If you blow up, society blows up. Can you really blame them for being scared of a kid who has 7 quirks and answers to nobody?" Izuku looked down. "I answer to my conscience." "Conscience doesn't stop villains, Izuku. Efficiency does. Speed does." Hawks tapped the side of his head. "Get dressed. There's a uniform in the closet. Training starts in 20 minutes, and if I refuse?" Hawks smiled. It was a sad, tired smile. "Then the cage stops being golden. And trust me, you don't want to see the basement again." The nest, simulation floor, 10 a.m. Izuku stood in the center of a massive training arena. He was wearing a new suit. It was sleek, black and gray, made of a ballistic weave that felt lighter but stronger than his gamma suit. There were no bright colors. No bunny ear hood. No homage to All Might. It was purely tactical. The only color was the glowing green lines of the support bracers on his arms, designed to handle the output of One for All. "Test Scenario 4 Alpha," a computerized voice announced. "Objective, neutralize hostiles. Collateral damage tolerance, 0. The room shifted. Holographic projectors hummed to life, creating a simulation of a crowded subway station. Mannequins representing civilians stood frozen, in panic. 3 combat droids dropped from the ceiling. They were bulky, armed with rubber bullet chain guns. "Begin." Izuku didn't move. He stood there, staring at the droids. "Midoriya!" Hawk's voice came over the intercom. He was in the observation booth above. "Move! You're a sitting duck." The droids opened fire. Danger sense flared in Izuku's skull, a sharp stab of pain. He reacted on instinct. Full cowling, 5%. He dodged left, the rubber bullets tearing up the floor where he had just been standing. "Smash!" Izuku yelled, leaping at the first droid. He pulled his punch at the last second, aiming to disable its sensors rather than destroy it. He didn't want to cause an explosion in a subway station, even a fake one. His fist connected. The droid stumbled back, damaged but operational. It raised its gun and fired point blank. Izuku took 3 rounds to the chest. The impact knocked the wind out of him. He stumbled back. "Fail," the computer announced. "Subject deceased." The lights in the arena turned red. The simulation paused. Hawk's voice crackled over the speaker. "What was that?" "You pulled your punch. It's a subway station." Izuku shouted up at the glass booth. "If I used 20%, the shockwave would have shattered the support pillars. The civilians would have been crushed." The door to the arena opened. Hawks walked in. He looked disappointed. "You're thinking like a rescuer," Hawks said, walking up to the dented droid. "You're worried about the infrastructure. You're worried about the bad guy's health. Heroes save people," Izuku argued. "We don't just kill the enemy." "In the real world," Hawks said, his voice hard, "if you hesitate for 1 second to worry about a pillar, that droid kills 10 people. You took 3 bullets to the chest. You're dead. And now the civilians are dead because you failed to neutralize the threat efficiently." Hawks turned to him. "The HPSC doesn't need a symbol that smiles and waves, Izuku. We have marketing teams for that. We need an asset that eliminates threats before the public even knows they exist. Hawks pointed a feather at the droid. Use the black whip. Restrain and crush. Don't engage in hand-to-hand. It's too messy. Too risky. I can't just crush it, Izuku said, horrified. What if it was a person? If it's a villain threatening mass casualties? Hawk's eyes were cold. Then you do what is necessary. Hawks walked back to the door, reset the simulation. Level 2 difficulty. And Midoriya? Izuku looked up, sweat dripping down his face. Stop trying to be All Might. All Might is gone. Be the weapon we need you to be. The break room, 12:30 p.m. Izuku sat on a bench in the locker room, his head in his hands. His new suit was scuffed. He was bruised. He had run the simulation 20 times. Every time he tried to save the civilians first, he failed the time limit. Every time he tried to disable the droids gently, he got shot. The only time he passed was when he used Black Whip to rip the droids apart instantly. It felt wrong. It felt violent. Rough day? Izuku looked up. A woman was standing there. She was tall, with purple hair and dark circles under her eyes. She wore a lab coat. I'm Dr. Garaki, force of habit from reading old files. I'm Dr. Aiko, she said nervously. I'm the quirk counselor. I don't need counseling, Izuku muttered. I need to get out of here. I know, she said sympathetically. She sat on the bench opposite him. But you're here. And fighting the programming is only going to make it harder. She handed him a tablet. The president wants you to review this. It's your new profile. Izuku took the tablet. On the screen was a mock-up of a hero debut poster. The image showed Izuku, but he looked older, harder. His face was partially obscured by a sleek, high-tech visor. He was surrounded by black tendrils of energy. The text read codename, Vortex. Vortex? Izuku asked. My hero name is Deku. The marketing division ran the analytics, Dr. Aiko explained gently. Deku polls poorly with the older demographic. It implies helplessness. Vortex implies power. Center of gravity. Inescapable force. I chose Deku, Izuku said, his voice trembling. I chose it because it means you can do it. My friend gave it to me. The Commission feels that sentimental attachments are a liability. Izuku stared at the tablet. They were erasing him. Bit by bit, they were sanding down the edges of Izuku Midoriya until only the quirk remained. I won't use it, Izuku said, sliding the tablet back. I am Deku. Dr. Aiko looked at him with pity. Izuku, the last person who refused a codename change, spent 6 months in solitary confinement, until they reconsidered. Please. Pick your battles. She stood up. Hawks is waiting for you on the roof. Aerial maneuvering drills. She left him alone in the locker room. Izuku looked at his reflection in the mirror. The black suit. The tired eyes. I am Deku, he whispered to the glass. But the reflection looked like a stranger. The roof, the cage top. 6 p.m. The sun was setting, painting the sky in hues of bruised purple and orange. The wind was high up here on the roof of the aviary complex. They weren't technically outside. A shimmering energy field dome covered the entire roof area, preventing anyone from flying out or in. Hawks was sitting on the edge of the parapet, his legs dangling over the side. He was watching the sunset. Izuku walked up behind him. He didn't sit. You're fast, Hawks said, not turning around. Your reaction time with full cowling is getting better. You shaved 0.4 seconds off your engagement time today. I destroyed the target, Izuku said dully. I ripped its head off, and the civilians lived, Hawks countered. That's the math, kid. Hawks patted the concrete next to him. Sit. Take a load off. We're off the clock. Izuku hesitated, then sat. He kept a safe distance. Why do you do it? Izuku asked after a long silence. Do what? Look this good? Hawks smirked. Work for them. You're the number 2 hero. You could leave. You could start your own agency, independent of the Commission. Hawks laughed, but there was no humor in it. He plucked a feather from his wing and twirled it between his fingers. You think I have a choice? I was like you, Izuku. They found me when I was a kid. My dad was a villain. My mom was complicated. We had nothing. Hawks looked at the feather. The commission offered to wipe the slate clean. They gave me a home. They gave me a purpose. They trained me to be the fastest hero in the world. He crushed the feather in his fist. But everything has a cost. They own the name Hawks. They own the suit. They own the agency. If I walk away, I'm just a guy with wings and a criminal record. He turned his golden eyes to Izuku. I sold my feathers to buy people time. I wanted a world where heroes have so much free time they don't know what to do with it. A world where kids like you don't have to break their bones to save everyone. But this isn't the way, Izuku said. Controlling people? Weaponizing them? That's what villains do. Maybe, Hawks admitted. But it works. Look at the crime stats since the HPSC took tighter control. Peace is up. Fear is down. It's a false peace, Izuku said. Like the bubble All Might created. If it pops, it's worse than before. Hawks was silent for a long time. The wind whipped his jacket around him. You really believe that, don't you? Hawks asked quietly. I have to, Izuku said. Otherwise, what's the point of one for all? It's a power meant to save, not to rule. Hawks looked at the energy dome above them. He seemed to be calculating something. You know, Hawks said, his voice dropping to a whisper, barely audible over the wind. This facility, the aviary, it has a blind spot. Izuku froze. He didn't look at Hawks. He stared straight ahead. The sensors on the perimeter, Hawks continued, as if talking to himself. They reset every night at 3 a.m. for maintenance. There's a 90-second window where the aerial thermal scans are down. Izuku's heart hammered in his chest. Was this a test? Was Hawks trying to trap him? Of course, Hawks said louder, stretching his arms. The ground sensors are still active. And the walls are reinforced titanium. So it would be impossible to get out unless you had, say, a cork that could grapple onto the exhaust vents of the transport trucks that leave at 3:05. Hawks stood up. He dusted off his pants. But that's crazy talk. You're safe here. In the golden cage. He looked down at Izuku. For a brief second, the cynical mask dropped. Izuku saw a young man who was tired of being owned. Don't let them take your name, kid, Hawks whispered. Vortex sucks. Hawks spread his wings and took off, flying back towards the elevator shaft, leaving Izuku alone on the roof. Izuku sat there as the sun disappeared completely. 3 a.m. Hawks had given him a key. Or maybe he had given him a trap. But as Izuku looked at the black band on his wrist, he realized it didn't matter. He couldn't just sit here and become Vortex. He couldn't become a killer for the state. He had to try, but he couldn't do it alone. He needed to get a message out. Izuku went back to his room. He went to the bookshelf. He pulled out a book, a biography of All Might. He found a pen. He couldn't use a phone. He couldn't use the internet. But the commission was arrogant. They allowed him to send approved letters to his mother and friends, to keep up the charade that he was just studying abroad. He sat at the desk. He wrote a generic letter to Class 1A. Dear everyone, I hope you are doing well. The training here is intense. I am learning a lot about quirk control. The facility is nice, very modern. I miss the katsudon at the cafeteria. He paused. He needed a code. Something only they would understand. Something that would bypass the censors and the censors. He thought about the USJ attack. He thought about Kamino Ward. He thought about the dorms. He wrote, I've been thinking a lot about our English lessons with President Mike. Remember when we learned about idioms? I feel like I'm really cooking with gas now. But sometimes I feel like I'm walking on thin ice. It was clumsy. But there was one phrase he knew Bakugo would catch. I know I have to work hard to catch up to everyone. I promise I won't be a pebble in the road anymore. Pebble in the road. It was an insult Bakugo had used years ago. But during their fight at Ground Beta, Bakugo had yelled, You were always a damn pebble I couldn't kick away. To the censors, it looked like self-deprecation. To Bakugo, it would look like distress. Izuku never called himself a pebble. He called himself a Deku. And then, the final clue, I'll be watching the stars tonight. Especially the Pleiades. They say they are brightest at 3 a.m. He signed it. Your friend, Deku. He folded the letter. He walked to the door and handed it to the guard. For my class, Izuku said. To let them know I'm okay. The guard scanned it. He read the text. He shrugged. Looks harmless. I'll put it in the outgoing pouch. Izuku watched the guard walk away. He retreated into his room. He lay on the bed, staring at the fake ceiling. The golden cage was comfortable. It was safe. It was efficient. But it wasn't home. And tonight, at 3 a.m., Izuku Midoriya was going to find out if he could fly without wings.